This episode is brought to you by Wix. To easily build your own website for free, head to wix.com/wisecrack. Hey guys, Michael here. Or as I'm known in the office, the bad boy of 19th century Danish philosophy scholarship. You probably already know two of the things we love rambling about most at Wisecrack are superheroes and philosophy. So today, we're going to take a look at two films that are full of superheroes and big philosophical questions, The Incredibles and Incredibles 2. Since the release of the Incredibles films, there has been much digital ink spilled over its philosophical themes, with much of it pooling around one idea. Namely, that The Incredibles is making an argument for Objectivism, a philosophical theory developed by novelist Ayn Rand. Advocates for this reading point to the emphasis on the exceptionalism of the supers and the implied critique of egalitarian society as evidence. And while we see where they're coming from,
if the time comes, you'll know what to do. It's in your blood.
We also think they're wrong. While there is undoubtedly some objectivist color to the films, their true philosophical importance is the way in which they consider the question of power. From the moral responsibility of having superpowers, to fans going insane due to a desire for power, to the power and influence of the media. These films pose questions that are as pertinent now as they were in 2004. And this time, we agree with you, Kanye.
No one man should have all that power.
Welcome to this Wisecrack edition on the philosophy of The Incredibles. And of course, spoilers ahead. But before we get to that, a Mr. Incredible-sized thank you to our sponsor. Wix gives you the superpower to make beautiful, robust websites. You don't have to get bitten by a radioactive web designer anymore. Thank God. With a utility belt that includes custom domains, enhanced security, and infinite design possibilities, Wix equips you to crank out websites in a snap that doesn't wipe out half the universe. Best part is, it's absolutely free to get started. More on that at the end of the video. And now back to the Fantastic Four. I mean The Incredibles. First, a quick recap. In the first movie, Mr. Incredible's scorned former fan Buddy wants to be a super, but since he's a normie, he decides to use technology to kill them all instead. Taking on the villainous persona,
I'm Syndrome!
Buddy plans to use Mr. Incredible to optimize his own personal death machine, the Omnidroid. Once perfected, he plans to defeat it in public so that society will see him as a hero, and eventually he can sell his technology as a product so that everyone can become super. And as we all know,
When everyone's super, no one will be.
Mr. Incredible feels neutered and aimless as a result of the superhero relocation program.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
Me too, kid.
And secretly returns to the superhero game to curb an impending midlife crisis. He even questions the point of the egalitarian spirit of Dash's elementary school.
It's not a graduation. He is moving from the 4th grade to the 5th grade.
It's a ceremony.
It's psychotic. They keep creating new ways to celebrate mediocrity, but if someone is genuinely exceptional,
This
then
is not about you, Bob.
But he eventually comes full circle, as he realizes that his power isn't just for feeling like a badass, but instead makes him responsible for the good of society. In this parable about power, we see that great power unchecked by great responsibility leads to very bad things. Incredibles 2 continues this exploration of power, but shifts the focus to the considerable influence of two media moguls.
Prestige worldwide.
No, not those media moguls, these ones. The brother, Winston Dever, is a lifelong superhero fan who wants to use his media influence and his seemingly endless piles of money to repair the super's broken public image and change the laws so that they are legal again. While his sister, Evelyn, wants to use said influence to mind control supers into doing horrible things, thus ruining their public image and ensuring that people don't put faith in them ever again. Alright, so in order to discern why the film has been read through the lens of objectivism, we need to first figure out, what in the hell is objectivism? The basic tenets of Randian objectivism are 1. The ability of human reason to gain objective knowledge of reality. 2. The moral aim of human life is to seek personal happiness. 3. Man's being is heroic in nature. And 4. That free market deregulated capitalism is the socio-economic system most suitable for this happy heroism. So basically, the philosophy of Ron Swanson.
This man is a failure. He is not up to snuff. His business is failing and you're bailing it out. This is a bailout and I don't like it.
We might usually associate heroism with those who use their powers to help others. But for Rand, a captain of industry is a better example. as they are the ones who make the world better simply by willing their own power and proving their superiority. Randian superheroes don't wear capes, but rather neatly pressed suits with Italian shoes and gold-plated cufflinks. Now, according to a whole bunch of writers, this is just the sort of philosophy we find in The Incredibles. Normal society represents the meaningless egalitarianism which tells us that everyone is special and that it's bad to be exceptional. The supers represent Randian heroes, frustrated by society's obsession with fairness and equality. Only when they are able to don their mask and tights are they able to will their own power and find happiness in their own strength. But rather than advocating for objectivism, these films shine a light on the types of problems that come from this inherently selfish philosophy through the failures of both Buddy and Evelyn. They explore a number of interesting philosophical ideas in relationship to power and responsibility. If anything, the films may be an exploration of what happens when keeping it Rand goes wrong. So, let's start by taking a look at the first film. As we mentioned, many of The Incredibles as objectivist proponents point to the characters' frustrations with the inhibition of their exceptional nature. Bob can't use his powers to stop muggings, and instead professionally ruins the lives of old ladies. Then there's Dash, who can't try out for sports lest he go all Usain Bolt on his classmates.
Dad always said our powers were nothing to be ashamed of. Our powers made us special.
Everyone's special, Dash.
Which is another way of saying no one is.
And while we see how examples of people's exceptional nature being suppressed by society can be read as objectivist, it ignores some clues to the contrary. First of all, the insurance company sucks, and Mr. Incredible's boss is a monster who only cares about profit.
Tell me how you're keeping Insuricare in the black. Tell me how that's possible with you writing checks to every Harry Hardluck and Sally sob story that gives you a phone call!
This of course makes him an ideal candidate for a Randian hero, but there's no evidence that he's anywhere close to a sympathetic character.
I'm not happy, Bob. Not happy.
Most importantly, this reading ignores Bob's moral journey, which can be best understood with the help of the Greek philosopher Aristotle, whose superpower was getting millions of undergrads to read his boring books for thousands of years. When Bob first shoves his middle-aged body back into his suit and gets back into the game, he does indeed exemplify the type of selfish exceptionalism that Rand lauded as heroic. He starts to care more about his secret superhero missions than he does his own family, selfishly prioritizing his own power and the pleasure it brings. So, if you stop the movie after half an hour, then sure, Mr. Incredible is an objectivist and the whole movie is one big ode to Ayn Rand's philosophy. But for those of us who finish the movie, we see that Mr. Incredible is simply beginning a moral journey in which he learns about the true purpose of having great power. In his lectures on ethics, Aristotle tells us what it means to live a moral and happy life. But before giving us the answers, he warns us of some of the common temptations that keep us from true happiness, namely pleasure, money, and power. Coincidentally, all of these are essential components of objectivist happiness. Much like trying to understand Bitcoin, Aristotle thinks our moral journey should consist of an endless pursuit without a seeming end. After all, pleasurable activities eventually get boring. Money is only for other stuff and never really makes us happy, and power is often dependent on factors outside our control. Mr. Incredible seems to fall into a devil's three-way of moral temptation, as his super secret superhero activities bring him pleasure, make him feel powerful, and throw some extra O's in his bank account along the way, like a good Randian hero. In this false happiness, he's experiencing pleasure from his own power, which is sort of like masturbating to a picture of yourself. And according to a friend of mine, you can't come back from that. Now, of course, Mr. Incredible is only drawn back into his super self via the trickery of his old fan Buddy, now acting as Syndrome. And while Buddy wanted nothing more than to be Mr. Incredible's faithful sidekick when he was younger, this fixation on power has turned his fandom into a near psychotic obsession.
After all, I am your biggest fan.
Buddy has structured his happiness and his moral goals around this pursuit of power. He wants power so badly that he needs to destroy the supers to prove to himself and the world that he has an ultimate sort of power. And this does not end well, as at one point Buddy doesn't seem to give a crap when Mr. Incredible almost kills his assistant Mirage.
That sounds a little dark for you. Now, go ahead.
If she was an objectivist before this encounter, she's throwing out her copy of Atlas Shrugged afterwards. On the flip side, When Mr. Incredible's pursuit of personal power puts his family in harm's way, he realizes that his power is only moral when it's actively used in the service of others.
I'm not strong enough.
Strong enough, and this will make you stronger?
Yes. No!
That's what this is? Some sort of workout?
I can't lose you again! I can't.
Whether these others be his family or the innocent citizens of Metroville. This stands in stark contrast with Rand's insistence that one's personal happiness leads to the greatest good.
I swear by my life and my love of it that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine.
And it's this that distinguishes Buddy from Mr. Incredible. In Incredibles 2, it seems as if a couple of objectivist captains of industry might just be the saviors of supers everywhere. As the second film finds the Incredibles both broke and without government protection, these two hyper-capitalist, Winston and Evelyn Dever, are set to make everything better with their financial resources and media influence. For a moment, it seems that the powers of industry might just save the day. In Randian terms, the Dever siblings are titans of industry, ready to get what they want, i.e., fulfill their own happiness via the most powerful force in modern society, the media. As a childhood superhero nerd all grown up, Winston wants to use his media influence to literally change the law so that he can get what he wants, which is a world full of cool superheroes to idolize. And though Evelyn might initially seem on board with her brother's plans, she intends to use her tech empire to make sure that supers go extinct, as she has spent her entire life blaming them for the loss of her father. It's revealed in the film that when burglars broke into their home, Evelyn and Winston's father waited on two supers to save him, but they never showed up and he was murdered. For Evelyn, her father's reliance on the supers is indicative of an inability to take responsibility for one's own life and actions. It's sort of like how all of us who grew up with spell check can't spell calendar or definitely to save our lives. Evelyn's desire for self-reliance is very Randian, but it's not so kosher that she wants to stifle the exceptionalism of others. But while all of these shiny titans of industry are spending billions to get what they want, the villain Screenslaver exposes the dark power of screens. This resentment of superheroes and their broader effect on society leads Evelyn to create Screenslaver, whose mission is expressed in a strikingly poignant manifesto.
Superheroes are part of your brainless desire to replace true experience with simulation. You don't talk, you watch talk shows. You don't play games, you watch game shows. Travel, relationships, risk. Every meaningful experience must be packaged and delivered to you to watch at a distance.
If much of this sounds eerily true of our contemporary relationship to technology, it's because it is. Before we know that Evelyn is Screenslaver, she has a conversation about the ills of the modern era with Helen, in which Helen agrees with her.
Which of us has the greater influence?
Which side of me are you asking? The believer or the cynic?
The cynic
would say selling is more important because the best sellers have the most buyers. Doesn't matter what you're selling, it only matters what people buy.
Now, while a disciple of Rand might argue that our present digital age has led to a capitalist utopia in which the right algorithms can lead to massive wealth for the exceptional few, the movies explore the effect that this entertainment-driven media has on our humanity. To better understand this, we can turn to 19th century Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard, who at times was the Screenslaver of his day. Kierkegaard was worried that the modern media, which at that point was the dawn of print media, was creating a world devoid of passion, in which reading about the interesting lives of others was thought to be equivalent to living an interesting life oneself. In a line that makes me relatively convinced that he had access to time travel and spent an afternoon reading sponsored content on Instagram, Kierkegaard said about his own age that, while a revolutionary age is an age of action, the present age is an age of advertisement and publicity. Nothing happens, but there is instantly publicity about it. For both Screenslaver and Kierkegaard, the media distorts our relationship to powerful people, as rather than lead us to imitating them in our own lives and activities, we settle and become mere spectators. Kierkegaard was worried that this would make 19th century Europe devoid of passion and individuality. Of course, this doesn't end well for Evelyn, and eventually the superheroes all come together and use their collective power for good, both stopping Evelyn's plan and, in the process, restoring the world's faith in the goodness of superheroes. Notably, Winston is pushed to action during the final act, not just using his massive resources to change the world for the better, but by actually risking his own life to save the lives of others. Just like in the first film, we see that true heroics isn't just flexing one's own power, it's about doing the right thing at the right time. To pull one more example from Aristotle, he thought that justice was completed virtue, as true justice is working for the good of another. And in this way, both films show that true heroes exhibit this type of justice, as their power is at its most virtuous when it's used in service of others. And we have a final critique of Randian thought in Violet's final words during Evelyn's arrest.
Well, I'm sorry she's rich and will probably get no more than a slap on the wrist.
Because at the end of the day, Metroville is like our own world, and access to wealth is the ultimate superpower. And while a Randian objectivist would enthusiastically agree, Violet is pointing out the fundamental injustice in this type of system. So there you have it. What some see as a pair of films with the Randian slant are in fact asking crucial questions about power, responsibility, and the forces in our world that have power over our attention and imagination. And just in case you still need to hold on to some sort of objective truth, just listen to what Mr. Incredible has to say about math.
Why would they change math? Math is math.
Okay,
Math
Dad.
is math.
Or if not, share your own truths with the world by creating a free website with Wix. Click here to get started building an easy, professional-looking website. Right here. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.